Hi guys, this is Raquel with Paints and Glitter, and I'm coming to you with a tutorial on how to make these beautiful flowers. I hope that this video goes through well. I tried to film it before, and for some reason I lost all of my sound. So anyway, I wanted to let you know that you can make these flowers, these beautiful, beautiful flowers, just like I did, by using your Cricut. These are all made with the Cricut Explore Air 2, the Explore Air or the Expression. All of the Cricut machines can make these flowers. These are all 3 inches in diameter, and I'm going to show you how to make one. So they're all different, as you can see. Look at how beautiful that is. They all have different styles of petals, if you see the edges there. So I just wanted to let you know there's quite a variety. If you see, this one looks more like a water lily, and that one's got enamel dots. I hand paint all of my flowers and I color them in because that's what I enjoy doing. So I don't buy papers that already look like that. I do this myself. Those have, that one's got a yellow center with gold. They all have well, some of them have a little bit of gold on them. And this one's nice and crinkly. They're all very delicate. I'm going to show you how I put them together. Some of them are plain on the back, and some, if you see that, have the petal or the flower on the back to hide the little stamens. But they're super easy to make. It's just a matter of having fun. Here's the one that I was trying to film, but then of course I lost my sound, so hopefully this video works. To make the flowers, you can, if you'd like. If you want stamens in the center, you can get stamens like this. I got these are pearlized, and I really like those. The size of them are pretty, from Hobby Lobby. Of course, you can cut out any flower that you like, any shape that you like from the Cricut website. This one here has 8 petals. The other ones that I made all have 5. I'll be working with this one. I did use Artist Loft paper, watercolor paper. You can, I don't know why this is there, but you can grab this at Michael's, and it's very inexpensive. I use the 90-pound weight, and it's a cold press. This type of watercolor paper, the reason I'm using it is because it grabs the color really well that I'll be using, and I really love the texture of it. So and that's just a matter of preference. You can use 60-pound cardstock if you like, if you don't want to do the coloring. As far as the coloring goes, I love oxide inks. These are the ones that I've used: peeled paint, worn lipstick, and wild honey. I love the pigmentation, the water reactive quality of the ink, and I just can't say enough about Ranger inks. I absolutely just, you know, completely impressed and really love using them. I have these little pliers that just makes my life easier because my hands are not strong. So you can use those, or you can use a pen. This is a Cricut marker in pink crystal. That's what I used for mine because it matched the ink that I was using. And then these are the tools that I've had these for about 12 years or something like that, maybe longer. And they're great. They're meant for creasing and folding paper and giving it shape and that sort of thing. So if you have this type of tool, which you can readily get online or at local stores, these are by McGill, but I don't even know if that company's still around anymore. If they are, they're well worth it. Like I've said, I've had mine for many, many years. The cushioning pad here that I have is from Cricut, but you can use any, like a mouse pad or anything cushy that will have give to it, that if you press into it will, you know, will allow your paper to take shape. And then I'll be using my glass mat because that's just what I work on. It makes it easier to use wet or dry, you know, materials. So I will begin first by applying a little bit of water. I just used a little bottle that I grabbed at Walmart from the travel section, filled with water. I do sanitize it before I fill my bottle, meaning that I boil the water and then let it get cool before I begin using it. And that's just for sanitary reasons. I like to have, you know, everything be clean. So anyway, to begin, you can wet your flower like I just did here, and then grab your tool. And if you don't have those tools, if I didn't mention it, just use the back of a pen or a paintbrush. Anything that will have a rounded edge to it that isn't blunt and flat will work. So you can just use what you have. For what I like to do is, if the petal is this particular shape, I want to add what normally would be there in terms of the veins in the petal. So there's no wrong or right way to do this, but I want to work with what's already there. In the other ones, I did use different, I curled the petals differently because they didn't have this particular edge, but that's okay because this is just one particular flower and there are hundreds of different styles. So just pulling toward the center to give it crease, a nice crease, and I'm being gentle at the same time because I don't want to break the paper. But if you see, watercolor paper will take shape really well. And then if you like the edges to have a lot of wrinkles, which I do because I think that makes it look more natural, then you can also run the tool on the edge of the petal, or you can do it with your hands. So it's, sorry, just went away. So it's really a matter of preference, but you can pull the petals. What I like to do, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. What I like to do is pull on the petal itself, depending on the shape that I want to give it. But this tool makes it a lot easier because I can get on the very edge of that paper without having to worry too much about it, and then I can get that wrinkled effect. Now, why do I want it to be wrinkled? Because when I go to ink it, it's going to look far more natural. Then you can press the center if you like, and depending on the type of flower that you want to make, you can remove a petal and make it smaller, or you can keep it rather flat. It's really, you know, a matter of preference. You can even place a bead in the center, like I've done here. And this is with mulberry, but there is a bead in there because I wanted to shape the flower so that it would be nice and tight. So that's a whole other, you know, style there. So you just repeat the process by, you know, making the paper a little bit wet on each side. And of course you can wet them all and just have them waiting for you there. And hopefully this doesn't take too long, and I hope there is sound because this is my second go around. And you just continue the same process here. Again, I'm going with the shape that I already have, so I'm just cooperating with what the flower would already look like, basically. So I'm doing my 2 veins in the center there, and then this can go rather quickly if you're, you know, if you're used to making them, or as you start making them, you'll get more comfortable, of course. And then the like I said, I like to pull away on that edge because that'll give me more of a crease. And with the same flower, you can make very, very different styles, or with the same petals shapes. You would be amazed at how many different kinds of flowers you can make with this very same petal shape. It's just a matter of how you layer them together, how much creasing you do, and what type of folding you do on that flower. So again, you can press the center if you want the petals to fluff up. You could also glue them this way so that they're all falling down. So it really depends on what style you want. And if you hear a drag, chances are the paper might be a little bit too dry, but Again, there's no right or wrong way. It's just whatever you want to achieve, whatever look you want to achieve. I sometimes mix and match also what I do with the petals just to get a different look on the flower. And that's always fun too, to just discover something new. But of course they, you know, it does look kind of neat if all of them are the same, to, you know, give your give the flower a more realistic look, of course, you know. So as you see, I pull in and can press the center there. And okay, we have two more here. Hopefully this is something that's for me it's kind of soothing to do, even though my hands are not very strong like I mentioned before, but I just love the end result. So for me it's a means to an end. I also, you know, I see the flowers from different companies in stores, and throughout the years you see the same flowers over and over again. What changes mostly is the colors. And oops, I did tear a petal there, but that's okay. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just pressing on the edges like this just to give it a little more texture on that one. But what I wanted to say is that they come up with different colors and that sort of thing, and that's all fine and good, but I really like to be able to mold the flowers and make my own colored flowers, because that way I'm guaranteed that it's going to match the project that I'm working on. So that's one reason to learn how to do them, and I've just through the years just really enjoyed making flowers. It's just well, you can make them with the cardstock, as I mentioned before, if you don't want to fiddle with inks and that sort of thing, or you can even make them with coffee filters, which is something that I've done, and that's a lot of fun. You can't really cut coffee filters with the Cricut, at least not with the Expression, or I'm sorry, the Explorer. Not that I know of, because it's such a thin paper, but you could use dyes. And maybe I'll do, if you're interested, let me know, because I can do a project share or tutorial on flowers made with coffee filters. That's been around for ages. I'm sure longer than I've been alive. So, and you know, I'm in my 20s. You're right. But I'm depressing here because I want to have a couple of these to have a bit more texture, and it might look crazy right now, but when I apply ink, it'll make more sense, because I want it to be quite tattered. That's kind of the look that I want. I don't want these petals to be perfect, so I want them to cup, and I want them to have wrinkles. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So as you see here, you know, that's quite a lot of texture there, and it might look crazy right now, but once you add, what I'll do is I'll alternate them like so, putting one that's got less texture with one that has more, and then that will add a little more interest to my flower. But first I'm going to add color, so let's do that next. And you can do it at the end, or you can do it while your paper's still a little wet, as mine is right now. And here's how I like to do it. I like to, let's see here, grab some ink, and it's looking like I had some water on my mat, so I recommend you do it with a dry glass mat, then add the water. I like to grab a paintbrush, and this gives you a little more control. Now you can, there's a million and one ways to go about this, but I like to sort of paint in a star shape, ideally going dark to light if I'm going to do it darker in the center, and then going lighter as, you know, on the outside of that flower. If not, you can even use a dauber and just add ink to your flower that way. And I hope I haven't moved the camera too much, and I apologize if I have. So what you don't want to do is color in a circle, because that's a dead giveaway that, you know, the flower is you know, just not realistic. So the good thing is that you can add layer upon layer of color with this type of ink. I could add 4, 5, 6 different layers of color if I wanted to, but for this tutorial I'm just going to keep it really simple. I'm just focusing on wanting to get color on every crease that I made there. Really, that's what I want. And then at the end here, what I have left is more of a wash. So it's going to take my very light pale white paper and make it a pale pink. And then if you want, you can go back and do the edges, the tips like that. Or for this type of thing, you know, you can use a paintbrush, which is fine, you know, to do the backs of the petals like that. If you're going for a very, you know, loose, organic type of look. Or you can use your, what is that tool called? I forget what it's called. This little guy. You can use these with the foam. Or a makeup sponge, even. If you don't have those tools, those are not, you know, it's not detrimental. Just use what you have. Most ladies can pick up, you know, makeup sponges at the dollar store, because even there you can pick up makeup items. And another thing that you can do is, and I'll show you that little tip in a moment, is to use an expensive eyeshadow to shade your paper without having to buy the sprays. Even though I did show you the flowers that I have here, for instance, this one was with a gold spray, but you can do different techniques. So I'm just going in with the just doing these tips, and of course you could fold the paper and just dip it in like that. You can do that if you're, you know, short on time, or you can just dip the very tip of your flower petals like so. Sorry. I'm just trying to be delicate with it without folding the paper too much. But it's just, you know, an option. I'm so used to using the paint brushes that to me it's second nature. It's just how I do most of my crafting. So that's just personal preference. So there's that. And of course you can spray the paper after inking it if you want that ink to react, and you know, you can emboss it, you can do, oh my gosh, so many different techniques. What I like to do is to make sure that I'm highlighting all that creasing that I did. That was the whole point of that. And I'll probably go back and add even more ink, which I can do like this, as I was mentioning before. Just use what's left on that tool, and that's going to highlight those little pieces there, or the little veins that were created. So maybe you can see that, I hope. And it's very subtle because this is a very light pink, but that's exactly what I wanted for the project that I'll be making. So now I'm just going to dry off my mat. Make sure that it's clean. And that's what I love about this. Cleanup is awesome. And I will now start alternating my flowers. So I'm gonna see, okay, who's more wrinkly, who's less, and you know, go with that. So I'm going to alternate the placement, and this is just basic flower, you know, 101. Alternate the placement of the petals so that you don't get open spaces in between. And that way everyone gets a chance to shine, right? So you do that. And then that really, really messy one I'm going to put right on top. And at this point, if I like my placement, I can start adhering it. This is going to be a rather full flower. So I'm thinking that what I would like to do now is to put my stamens in it. So to do that, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but if your flower on Design Space has a hole in the center, use your hide contour feature to eliminate any holes that the petals may have, because if it's too big, you will have a harder time assembling the stamens, whereas you can always add it after. So that's just my little tip. I like to use my Cricut tool here. This is just a very pointy tool, and you can use anything you have. Like to open the center like so. Now this is watercolor paper, so it's not going to rip too much, okay? So just made sure that that went through, and because it's still wet, I can, you know, expand that without too much trouble. And then it's a matter of personal preference as to what you can put in the center. In fact, if you want, you can do, instead of stamens, you could do a gem like that. So that's, you know, something you could put in the center. You could do a big one if you really wanted, you know, to make a statement there. Or you could do the stamens. If you do, you just grab however many you want. And then these little guys, of course, can be folded like little, you know, whatever grouping you want to go with. Now, depending on how many you use, it's going to be a little bit harder to fit all of those at once in the center of the flower, but I kind of go for it, and then whoever doesn't make it gets left out. If not, then you know what? There you go. That's how easy that was. Everybody made it through. So I will now, what I can do here is I can apply adhesive to this back, and what I'll do is then I will use a different flower petal to cover it up like I did here. So if you see the shape there, or the, you know, creasing, it's because the little stamens are hiding back there, okay? So that's how I would finish that off, but for the sake of time, now you can see, you know, how those little stamens are going to be hanging out in there. You can pull them out a little more if you like. This is where you can play around to give it the look that you want. And then as far as the coloring on the petals here, now you can go back as I did with a marker, a pen, you know, whatever you have. And I like to add the little dots here in the center by stippling. You could use a stamp. You can emboss this if you like before you assemble it, but that's an option. You know, I try not to limit myself to one particular style, of course, but at the same time, for this natural look, I just wanted to add a little stippling there. That's what I did on the other ones, like that. and because it's the same color, it's very subtle. Although you could do it in black or in orange, a dark brown, you know, anything like that, and it would look really awesome too. And then the little tip I wanted to give you guys was the inexpensive eyeshadow, you know, that you might have laying around. If you grab a dry brush, which I'm looking for here, if you could bear with me, here we go. You can take a pearlescent eyeshadow, and it's any kind really, just a color that won't compete, of course, with what you've already placed on your flower, and then just place that on here and it will have the same exact effect, I kid you not, as all those expensive sprays that I won't mention. But it's an alternative, is I guess what I'm trying to say here. And of course you can do this before assembling. The paper that I'm using, because it's again watercolor paper and it's still a little wet, it's going to help that shadow stay, or that powder, because there's mica in these powders, and that mica will adhere, you know. It's just like anything else. You apply any kind of dust or dirt to water and it's going to stick. So the same concept applies here. You can just be fancy about it if we want to, but so yeah, you can just go through, play around. Please let me know what you think of this tutorial. If you have any feedback or any questions, I welcome anything you'd like to let me know. If there's, do you make flowers also, or do you prefer to buy them ready-made? I know that's, you know, there's so many options out there, but I just wanted to give you one example, and then of course this is one of hundreds. YouTube is, you know, there's a plethora of helpful videos out there, but I'm hoping that maybe you took something away from this one, and that you see how easy it is to create something beautiful with your Cricut. You could also add seed beads to this if you wanted to, with, you know, shoot it with some glossy accents, and then I haven't adhered this, but I wanted to let you know that if you're going to adhere it, I recommend, which obviously you do want to glue it together because you don't want this to fall apart, but here's how I like to do it. I like to then flip it over, and then add a little dot of glue and make sure that my petals are overlapping. Excuse me. And because this paper is so porous, I don't need to add a lot. And remember that little petal that I accidentally broke? It's okay. You can get a little glue. And I don't know if you can see the sheen on that paper, but it's definitely there. So I just keep going with that. And each layer I add a tiny little drop. This adhesive is really good, and it dries very quickly. So then at the end you can splay these out if you want to, as I mentioned before, and then cover them. And then that way your flower will be complete. It'll dry, and then you can scrunch it up if you like. You can do that to it. Have no fear, it's okay. You know, it's not going to damage the flower. I actually think they look better once they've been kind of, you know, manhandled a little bit, if you will. But, you know, and then you can add what you like to make that center look the way you want. But as I said, this is just one option. I think it looks adorable. It's very delicate. That's what I like about it. And then, of course, once it's with all its buddies, and you've got everyone grouped together, then look at that. I mean, you can't go wrong. To make these, if you were to buy these in a store, they would cost you a whole lot more than, you know, than what you can make them for, because you can get these the individual, you know, little tidbits for, I think, a rather good price. And I don't know, you can personalize them. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I have enjoyed making the flowers and of course playing around with inks and all of that. So if you feel free to, or if you want to, reach out to me if you're interested, and I'd love to hear what you, or read what you have to say. And I hope that you can be inspired and be blessed and have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.